This is Crew Talk, the podcast of Bombers CrossFit, where we build healthy humans. Here we talk about strength, discipline, mindset, community, real training, real nutrition, real results. If you're ready to level up inside and outside the gym, you're in the right place. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Crew Talk, the official podcast for Bombers CrossFit, where we build healthy humans. Have you ever looked at a workout on the whiteboard and wondered, why are we doing this today? In this episode, hopefully we're going to pull back the curtain on the next quarter of programming. Trent and I are going to explain why our workouts aren't random, why you'll be running twice a week, why skill work matters, and why scaling is one of the smartest decisions that you can make. So let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to Crew Talk, and thanks very much for joining us for this in-depth look at the third quarter programming, which is going to be done by Trent and myself. So Trent, I want to just start off. We've already kind of gotten, what are we, 7 days in, something like that?
Yep.
And so some of the things people have already seen, but I wanted to identify what are the things that are kind of unique as far as what people will see that are different than what you normally would have. And one of those things is the fact of test. And so that was something we talked about back and forth. You wanted to do, like, initially it was like a week of tests, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I think you and I both, from talking about programming, I think we both really like any of the kind of benchmarks, right? Because it's a good way to measure yourself, kind of where you are, where you've been. The benchmarks and tests always kind of have a little extra kind of juice to them, I think, or you think about them a little bit more. But then we kind of centered on, you were going to build a test and I was going to put it together a test, and then we would run those at several points throughout the summer and see how people improved on those things. And then kind of trying to build some programming around it, right? You don't want to program a test and then not have any development leading into that test either. So those kind of help, I think, bound the overall approach that we want to take for the quarter. But we both like the idea of having kind of some benchmark tests to do.
And so what was the test that you came up with?
So I didn't write it myself, but I was looking at ways to kind of test different energy pathways. We do heavy days here. That's a great way to test the phosphagen pathway, that short burst pathway. But I was trying to think of different ways to do that outside of just a normal heavy day, right? You have various sprinty workouts that you can do, but you're limited there by the rest time that you need to restore that pathway. And so I had found this weightlifting test online called the CP battery test. And so it involves kind of a heavy day of power cleans and building up to a heavy single, and then seeing how many reps of that you could do at 90%, which is heavy, right? On a normal day, you might only have a couple good reps at above 90%, but it challenges you to kind of repeat that power output and really push that pathway like farther than you would on a normal heavy day when you're lifting, I think, every 3 minutes, or at least hit it in kind of a different way. Yeah.
And what did you find from the results? What was your takeaway from it?
I was surprised, I think, by how many reps people could get. I think whether or not that means, maybe we're technique limited on our power clean, we're probably not hitting a true 100% of what our body can handle weight-wise. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do, 20 plus reps of that in 8 minutes. It might only be 2 or 3 if there was a true 1 rep. But even still, I enjoyed the test. I think what I've heard so far is that other people enjoyed it. It was just kind of an interesting way. Kind of feels like a strength and Metcon day, but it's all one movement. Yeah. I also like the ability to coaching it. It's just one movement, and so you can really kind of dive in to kind of some of the finer details of the movement versus, when you have power cleans and then 2 other movements, you kind of can't spend as much time really digging in when you're just kind of going over the basics.
I think I felt like I saw a lot of breakthroughs for people, specifically in where they catch the power clean, that quarter squat that we always talk about. And a lot of people, when they get heavy, they'll like starfish their feet.
Sure.
That's not an effective way to be operating at 90% for multiple reps, And so I saw a lot of people that were getting a lot more effective at catching the clean in a good, strong position.
Right. Well, and if you on a normal clean heavy day, right, you're getting only, like I said, 2 or 3 of those attempts at like that 90+%. And if you miss one, it's hard to go back and think of like, what could I have done better? But when you have 8 minutes to just do as many reps as you can, it does give you that time to just continue to dial in, like you said, that catch point, or you really have to make sure that your setup is really good every time, because if it's not, you're not going to make that lift. And so it does kind of force you to think about the technique more and really refine that, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're doing that WOD right, okay, you should probably miss 2 or 3 of your attempts throughout that period. And if so, then you're right on the edge where you need to be, where if your technique is not dialed in on that, if you don't get a good drive with your hips on that, you're not going to get enough height. If you don't get low enough to catch it, or if your feet are really squirrely, you're not going to be able to hold it.
Well, and it's at such a high percent that even when you miss, it's so much wasted energy, right? I mean, you jumped the bar up and maybe not caught it. You got to spend some time recovering from that, and so it also kind of is a good mental challenge, right? Can I get down there and do a good rep every 20 seconds, or force myself to try every 30 seconds, or whatever you're trying to hit? It kind of helps keep you on a schedule and kind of stay moving.
I love that WOD, and I think I'm glad that we're going to repeat it. So we're going to repeat it again in like the 2nd or 3rd week of August, somewhere around there, and then we'll do it again the end of September.
Yep.
Probably the very last week of September we'll do these again.
Yeah, and so it'll be a thing where, maybe your power clean doesn't go up. Maybe you lift the same amount, but maybe then your goal is more reps. Or maybe you are able to lift more by that point, and then your goal would be to do the same number of reps that you did at a lower weight, 6 weeks ago. So it gives you some options, or even if you have a bad day, right? Okay, then I definitely need to beat my score from last time. So it gives some motivation regardless of how the actual lifting day goes. But you also want to make sure that, you're testing it on different days. I think we did it on a Friday this time. Fridays, typically people are, you're pretty beat up from the week.
Sure.
And so doing it on a Monday, will results be different maybe? So we'll see how that shakes out.
All right. And then the test I came up with was the heavy mile test. So it was a standard heavy day, 5-5, 3-3, 1-1-1 on the deadlift, trying to get to a heavy single. Then you get a minute rest and you have to go out for a mile run. And I like that because I just love general physical preparedness. I think that's the key of CrossFit. I think that's the thing that CrossFit gets right. And that test was designed to test that. Okay, so how do you get a leaderboard that has Phil and Josh Hughes right up neck and neck? Okay. Because normally Phil's going to lift a lot more weight than Josh is going to do, and Josh is going to run a lot faster than Phil would do.
Right.
Okay. So how do you equalize the two?
Yeah. No, I thought it was good. I've always liked to kind of deadlift and a running combo in a workout anyway. I think they work kind of well together. It feels a lot better doing that than squatting and running. So I thought it was a fun challenge to you get the kind of satisfaction of building up to a heavy deadlift, which I think is always fun. It's the lift that people can usually lift the most at, so you get to throw a bunch of plates on and do something cool, and then the run is just a good challenge. And everyone going out at the same time too also made it fun, because it gives you people to chase. It gives you people to stay ahead of. A lot of people always go the same class times. You know who's going to be in your class. You know who you want to beat. And it gives that kind of extra motivation when you're all running out there together.
Yeah.
Like I noticed when I coached it, I think at 6 a.m., a lot of people ran faster than they've ever run because Chad was out in front of them, and someone was chasing Chad, and then so they were chasing that person, and that can do a lot. It can really push you along when you have someone faster and you're just trying to stick with them.
The mile times really shocked me. I mean, it really did.
They were really low.
There were some very impressive runs. I was surprised. I would have bet money that Josh Hughes would have had the fastest, and he didn't. He was just a few seconds behind Chad. So I think that means when we retest this again in mid-August, we need to make sure that they're in the same class.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, because it's sort of one of those things too where you don't really know what you're going to have in the tank, and now that you've done it and you're retesting it, you kind of know you're going to know what that mile feels like. So you're going to know, okay, I think I can push that. That's kind of where I was at. Like, I ran a faster mile than I had in a long time, but I also came inside and I was like, there was probably more there. And so maybe next time I can push it a little harder. And so, that's just what I like about these tests is then benchmarks and repeating some of these workouts is it gives you that little bit of extra motivation. Like, okay.
And the other thing I kind of like about this is, and it comes back to CrossFit programming, I think in general, it's like, well, how do you improve your deadlift unless you're on, like doing a Windler cycle where you're, doing a deadlift on a steady basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're doing 5s and 3s and 7s and, building up to a heavy set, right?
Right.
But CrossFit says, no, you can improve your deadlift by working out for a month, having never deadlifted that entire month, and yet your deadlift is going to get better because you've generally strengthened your core and your legs and the rest of your body in other ways,
Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to attack it, right? I mean, obviously, progressive overload works. People do. That's why people do it. That's what CrossFit is. When we do our strength cycles, sometimes when we do our programming, it's centered around, okay, like last year we had an overhead pressing cycle, and so we did progressive overload. That's sort of what Barbell Club does, right? Our Barbell Club classes are progressive overload. But yeah, I mean, you can get so much benefit from just a good, well-balanced week that has some thought behind it, and it can really improve you, like you said, in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. So let's go through. I've just got some general questions. Let's go through these and just kind of like talk about.
Sure.
Oh, the other thing that we were going to talk about. So like, if there is any bias in our programming, which generally there should not be, but if there is, this cycle it's running. Okay. During this quarter, the weather and everything, this is the time of the year that you should be running more. So we want to try and run at least some sort of running twice a week.
Yeah, we're hitting running a lot. We're in Ohio, right? You only get so many good months. We didn't run a ton in the springtime.
No, we
didn't.
And
so, it's going to be hot, but I also like, to me, when I think of any of the monostructural movements, right? Like everything we do is functional, but like few things in my brain are more functional than just the ability to just run. And running different distances and different paces, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to run. You have to chase your kid. You have to, your dog gets out, or all sorts of different reasons why you'd have to run when you're playing sports, even in here. But it, to me, feels like the most functional or the most natural of those monostructural movements, because it's not like everyone has access to some boat and they can go out and row, or biking is kind of up there too, but you don't need any equipment. Like you can just go out and run. So the ability to just do that, is important, I think.
Yeah. I think it's a necessary skill, and especially, there has been a bear that's been sighted in Greene County. So I mean, you never know. I mean, it's the unknown and the unknowable, right?
Well, and you've always said too that everybody should be able to, at the drop of a hat, go out and run a mile. And so, just getting yourself out there. It's also just a mental barrier for so many athletes. Like so many athletes, just like, I hate running.
Yeah.
Well, I think doing it more, kind of like chip away at that a little bit. Once you kind of learn a little bit more of how to run and what your body, how to breathe when you're running. There's a lot of different things that go into it to make it feel not as bad. Yeah,
I did that in a class once where just for the warm up, I said, okay, we're going to run a mile. And they were like, everybody laughed. And I was like, no, really, we're going to run a mile. And they well, you mean like, like just like jog it, or no, run for a mile,
Right.
So
yeah,
that should not be something you're ever afraid of doing,
Right. Yeah, and then also, I mean, it's easy too, like logistically, right? We got good running loops here that make sense. Running kind of can serve in a workout. Sometimes there's workouts where the run is the part where you push. Sometimes in workouts, the run is the part where you recover. And so learning when and how to do that and is another skill, right?
Yeah. I will tell you that might have been it's probably now my second least favorite warm-up that I've done for a class as far as feedback from the class. But the other day when we did Gallant, I did a test round before, so I made them go 200 meters with the wall ball and then come back in and do 5 burpee pull-ups as a test round. Yeah, it was not voted. It did not receive 5 stars, so
It's okay.
yeah, it was fine. Everybody survived it. So let's talk about some of the misconceptions about CrossFit programming. So I will start with one we're talking about cycling. So CrossFit programming is supposed to be, varied, so that it's always changing around. And so it's not built like it's the difference of like a general strength building program, which is done on a certain cycle, and CrossFit is not necessarily done on any sort of cycle like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a method to it, right? It's like from the top, when we were talking about what are we going to do, you kind of have a general focus, and you can have that, or like I referenced before, when we did like an overhead strength cycle, or it could even be like a mentality shift, like Cassie and Alyssa and Dylan's group did RX month, right? That's kind of trying to train the brain a little bit more, how you think about approaching a workout. So you can start there, but yeah, from there then it's, you have to be constantly varied, and so you want to make sure that you're hitting the monostructural movements, the weightlifting movements, the gymnastics movements, that sometimes you're only hitting one of those, sometimes you're hitting 2, sometimes all 3 are in a workout. There are all sorts of hundreds of different workout formats that you can put things in. You can do buy-ins and cash outs, and so it's not random, right? I think how we tend to build it, or at least how I tend to build it out, is I'll get an idea for a workout. I'll look at the workouts that we've done the past couple of weeks, making sure that I'm not hitting anything too crazy hard that has already been hit pretty hard, and starting there. And then from there, okay, what's missing? Maybe I need some gymnastics there. Maybe do I want to do a heavy day this week? Okay, what kind of heavy day have we maybe not done in a while? It's sort of how I look at it.
Yeah.
Obviously, some redundancy is fine sometimes, but trying to just stay like kind of broad and making sure that you're hitting areas more or less evenly.
Yeah.
Now, when you're doing tests, right, maybe this quarter we will have some heavy deadlift days or some other WODs with moderate to heavy deadlifts to kind of try to train for some of those tests, or days of clean and jerks or power cleans to prepare for the other tests.
Yeah.
But around that, you can really build out a pretty well-rounded program.
Yeah, so I'd say, generally when I'm looking at like a week or something, and I probably do a week at a time, then the first thing I do is decide if I'm going to do a heavy day. I don't know why, but it's just kind of the way. And if I'm going to do a heavy day, I plug that in first, okay? And then I build the rest of the week around that, looking for primarily couplets and triplets, so 2 movements or 3 movements generally. Most of the WODs are going to have 2 or 3 movements, and then look at time domains: long, medium, short. Yeah,
and I think you can, you can kind of, I would say, in a week you program 6 workouts. For like 3 to 4 of those, redundancy I think matters less. Like, you don't want to obviously do front squats 4 days in a week, but you can kind of program sort of whatever you want and kind of mix and match things. And then what I'll do is those last couple of days, I'm like, okay, what kind of general skills am I missing here? Have I done any squats yet? Have I programmed my squats? Have we done any, we've done a lot of overhead pressing. Have we done any horizontal pressing? Have we done any pulling? Have we done too much pulling? So looking at then, okay, in these 3 to 4 days, what gaps do I still have? And then kind of building things out that fill those gaps is sort of how I like to round out a week. But then also tying in like previous weeks, like when me and you work together, you do a week and then I do a week. like we don't want to do that in a vacuum. So you want to look at the week before too, and make sure that what you're putting together at least makes some sense.
Yeah, yeah. Which we were looking at some that we've got coming up, and we had one in 2 weeks that were not completely similar, but similar enough that we're going to have to change one of them. You know?
Yeah.
So, but it's I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing like squatting 2 days in a row.
Right.
You know, it should probably be different. If you had like a back squat heavy day, and then the next day you had like an air squat Tabata or something like that, you know, there's not any reason you couldn't do that, you know.
You wouldn't want to do back-to-back days where you have an AMRAP and in the AMRAP are 95-pound front squats. Like that would make less sense, at least changing the load or the movement, but keeping it a squat. Yeah, something like that is still fine and happens, you know, in life from time to time. Sometimes you have to be redundant. Sometimes you have to squat a lot. Sometimes you have to do a lot of push-ups, things like that.
And then I always look at the day too and think of how it's going to be coached. Okay. And this is specifically if you're looking at like doing a strength and Metcon, which a lot of people like to do a strength component and then a Metcon. You know, how is that going? And those can be done poorly and they can be done well. All right. I think one is done well, you know, if you've got something that kind of like carries over to it. So like I've got one coming up that's it's a thrusters strength day. Okay, so kind of like a classic, might even be on an EMOM or something like that. And then after that, there's a Tabata of thrusters and pull-ups. Okay, and so the two things kind of work together. So the coach has to teach one barbell movement, just the thruster, and then he has to teach the pull-up. And so it's not too much that you can't still do the level of instruction that you need to do and still get it done within the time.
Yeah, I mean, strength and Metcon's obviously effective because if it wasn't, so many gyms wouldn't do it. But here, it's that coaching, right? You miss out on a lot of that coaching. So how do you incorporate sometimes a strength and Metcon, but make it more kind of coach friendly or more friendly to the population that we have at our gym, right? Where we want to still be improving movement. We want it to make sense. Like, doesn't make sense to me when you walk in, you're like, okay, the strength is front squats today. Oh, and the workout is pull-ups and I don't know, something else that's completely unrelated. Makes less sense to me, or at least makes it harder to coach.
It makes it very difficult to coach. And the thing is that the culture that Andy and Greg have built here is that we coach movements, we teach movements every day. Okay, it doesn't matter how long you've been working out. We're still going to teach the air squat. We're still going to teach lunge steps. Every movement is going to get taught every day. Okay, because that's just the culture of this gym. You know, and so you have to be concerned with how the workouts are programmed, because sometimes that would make that difficult to do.
For sure. And there's obviously other logistics concerns too. Like we had that ski erg workout on Monday, and we only have 5 skis, so we don't do a lot of bench press here. We don't have enough benches, so maybe we do floor press. Some things like that you think about too. It's not just you know, if you're going to program a rope climb day, you got to think about, okay, how many people are going to be in class? What other movements do you have to kind of decongest some of these areas? So there's some other things that play into it as well when you're putting a week together. So
yeah, I mean, we had talked about we've done the 7 recently. We did it on a Saturday. Initially, we were talking about doing it during the week, but then if you look at that from a coaching standpoint, trying to manage that, it's just not easy to do. Logistically, you get a 6 a.m. class with 22 people in it. You know, it's just it's too difficult.
Yeah, I mean, both the Saturday classes ran over. I mean,
they did. Yeah.
So it was a good choice not doing it during the week, because it would have been really difficult. You would have had to have people really, really, really scale that workout back to, and then at that point, you know, scaling is great, but like there's a limit, right? You want to make sure that you're still kind of getting the stimulus of what the workout was intended to do. And so if you're scaling the 7 back down to get it done in under 20 minutes, are you still doing the 7 or under 15 minutes or whatever you would need to fit all of that in an hour? It'd be different.
I've coached, there's the classic chipper is the Filthy 50, you know, which is a great workout. But it's 10 movements, and 50 reps of each of 10 movements, and that's a bear to try and do in an hour-long class. I mean, it's really not possible to do it in an hour-long class.
It would have to be on a Saturday or something.
Yeah, and it's still chaotic even then. So, we talked about dedicating time for specific skills. What was kind of the rationale behind that?
Yeah, I think, well, it's hard. Not everyone can come to the gym every day, right? In fact, rest is obviously super important. Recovery is super important. People probably don't need to come to the gym every day to really, improve their fitness. And, life gets in the way sometimes. And so it's hard to improve at some of the really higher skill movements if you only ever work on them when we program them. Yep. We say this about double unders a lot. If you only ever practice double unders when we program double unders, you will never get double unders. You have to do a little bit of outside work. And so we were kind of thinking, when we look ahead, from week to week, what can we do to make the subsequent weeks a little easier for the athletes? And also just sprinkle in a little extra coaching, right? If you only have a 10-minute AMRAP, and so you have, with a couple movements in it, you probably have some extra time there to do some skill work. Yesterday, maybe it didn't feel super clean with what the workout was, but we had some ring muscle up practice in there, because next week we have some ring muscle ups in a workout. So it gives, some of that, fires some of those neurons and gets some of that muscle memory set for the athlete. So it's not like, oh, okay, I haven't done ring muscle ups in over a month. I guess I'm going to do low ring transitions like always. It kind of, sprinkling it in a little bit more frequently when you can. It makes it a little tougher on the coach just because there's more stuff to talk about, but it's not so much that it's overwhelming to coach either.
Yeah, and I think if you focus that skill work towards particular things, so like yesterday, there was a lot of attention on negatives, doing negatives in the ring muscle, which is a great way to build the strength necessary to build. So, sometimes working on a skill is great, but we need to give people something that they can take away and work on their own, okay? So I told people in my class that if you come in 3 times a week or 2 times a week and you do a couple of sets of negatives on the low rings, even with your feet on the ground, working towards not having your feet on the ground, if you do that consistently over a period of time, you're gonna get strong enough to be able to do a ring muscle up. So.
Yeah, it's just that little bit of extra, right? And not everyone has time to do that outside of the class, right? You only have so much time in a week. Maybe you can only get away for an hour. And so if we can be smart about where we sprinkle that in, when we do CAP, CAP does a good job of this, of looking ahead. They're going to have double unders 2 weeks from now, so maybe they hit double unders on a pre-WOD EMOM kind of a deal or something like that, or a double under Tabata or something. Just trying to look ahead and thinking, okay, how can we more holistically improve our programming by just kind of getting a little bit of skill work when we can afford it. You're not going to shove it in on a day when you have a 30-minute AMRAP, because it doesn't make sense there. But on those kind of days where you do maybe have a little extra time, sure, yeah. And then you have something coming up the next week, yeah, it's a good time for it.
So let's talk a little bit of thought into weights and rep schemes. So when you're looking at weights and rep schemes on a workout, I will say a lot of times I'm thinking, is this a movement that I want people to do a lot of reps unbroken? Is this something that I expect that they're going to do singles? And what do I want to try and encourage? So say for instance, we did snatches and toes to bar yesterday. Okay, so if you have a lightweight snatch like we did with toes to bar, then you're challenging people to try and work on their ability to brace in their midline in order to keep doing those movements. Because if you can't stay tight in the core, okay, you can't rep out unbroken, and you can't be unbroken on the toes to bar. All right, that's a totally different thing than if you were say you wanted to work on toes to bar, but you wanted to be heavier on the snatch, in which case, maybe I'm going to go more weight, and I'm going to expect that people are just going to do like singles. So you say I'm going to have you do like 3 heavy squat snatches instead, you know? So, I mean, what are your thoughts when you go into stuff like that?
Well, some of this is also like, yeah, part of it is, okay, how can I design something that kind of hits what I want to hit? Like yesterday, we did the toes to bar and snatch and rowing workout, and so I wanted to hit the midline, like you said, before you put something overhead, because that always is like a scary feeling when you do that first snatch, even if it's light. But that should stay varied and not random, but that should stay constantly varied too. If you always do 4-time workouts, then you don't quite learn as much how to pace a workout. If you always do AMRAPs, then you never quite learn, okay, where is that red line threshold to really get something done as fast as possible. If you're always doing a descending rep scheme where it gets mentally easier every round, what are you going to do if there is an ascending rep scheme and you have to go up? So it's kind of just making sure that, you know, you're staying variable there also. But then, yeah, it's looking at, you know, what's the load? Okay, I want a heavy squat in this. So if the barbell's going to be heavier, you probably got to do less reps. And if you're doing less reps of this, okay, what movements can I do around this that will stimulate something else, but also give you time to recover to go do more heavy reps on the barbell by the time you get back to it. So there's a lot of things that go into it, I think. It's not just, you know, throwing darts at a dartboard, like toes to bar, snatches, row. Put it in something and that'll be fine. It probably would be okay if you did that, but it wouldn't be, you know, you want to make sure also that you're thinking about the athletes that go to your gym too. You know, it wouldn't make a ton of sense for us to program crazy high skill movements all the time, because our athletes are still kind of working on a lot of those foundational things sometimes, and that's perfectly fine. There are some gyms that are very elite gyms and focus more on the CrossFit as a sport, and so their programming is different to reflect that. So it's kind of back to why we like to be more broad, right? Train all the skills and try to balance them out. So I just try to stay kind of varied with it, and then when I'm thinking about a specific workout, I think, okay, does this rep scheme add a little bit of kind of extra challenge here? It was like yesterday, or with the power snatch one again. Can anyone hold on to that and go unbroken the whole time, is what I was thinking.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, then I need to make this power snatch pretty light, and the reps, you know, not an absurd amount, because you want people to just hold on to it. So that 20-15, 10-5 seemed like a rep scheme that people could, but it was challenging to do that.
And I think sometimes you got to look at the gym, like you said, you assess kind of the skills that people have and that people need to work towards. Okay.
Yeah.
And so there a couple that had come to my attention recently were like in wall ball sets. You know, it's kind of common where you see people that they'll break up anytime there's a lot of wall balls in a workout. They'll do like sets of 10 or sets of 20 or something like that, that's never a way to get a really good score at like Karen or something like that. You know, you need to be able to do 30s and 40s and 50 wall balls unbroken, you know, and so the only way to work that is to work that, you know. You've got to build that capacity to go bigger sets. I say the same thing about I mean, toes to bar is a great one. You know, if you do single toes to bar, all you'll ever do is single toes to bar. Okay, you have to work the ability to string them together. Same thing with bar muscle ups. You know, it's a great skill to get, and you should be thrilled that you're able to do one. But if you always do singles, you're always going to do singles. Yeah,
it's like the barbell movements too, right? I think like anytime you have like over 135 pounds overhead, I'm going to assume that everyone at the gym is going to do that in singles. And maybe that's the strategy to go faster, but sometimes you have to practice the other things. It's sort of like they just did it at Mayhem, where they programmed Gwen, which is 15, 12, 9 unbroken clean and jerks. So if you fail a rep in that set of 15, you have to start that set of 15 over. So again, just different ways of training the skills that, you know, maybe get ignored or get kind of strategized around.
Yeah. And to score on that is you have to, it's
for
whatever
load.
weight you do.
It's for load.
You know?
Yep. So not a time limit on it. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a time cap that you have to finish it all in, but yeah, it's for load. And so it entices you to push the weight harder, but you can't do singles on Gwen.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you need to be able to do, multiple reps like that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, and that also goes back to functionality, right? And sometimes, you're going to have to hold on to something longer than you want it to.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we're in here, we're trying to get the best time or get as many reps as possible. So it's all just thinking about doing it as fast as possible sometimes. But yeah, sometimes you got to train the other pieces too, like holding onto that barbell when you really, really don't want to.
And it's fundamentals too. I mean, if you can't, if you don't move one rep well, and if you can't do that consistently, then there's no way you can string them together. Okay, if you start to string things together and it's going crazy on you, then it's not going to last. You're not going to be able to do it.
Right. So
let's talk a little bit. So you mentioned earlier about the RX. We're still going to have RX settings here. As always though, we want people to kind of modify the workout to what their abilities are.
Yeah.
Which sometimes might mean maybe you should go a little bit heavier or a little bit harder.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of it is athlete dependent too, right? Like everyone has their own reasons for why they come here. Some people want to get fitter. Some people just really like to push themselves. And I think there's not a wrong answer there, but I would say what we tend to more program around is that fitness and trying to get you to be as healthy of a human as possible. And so usually that RX weight or that RX number is around kind of what we think that stimulus of the workout will be, whether that is getting done in a certain amount of time or holding things to be unbroken or what have you. So that, it also helps push an athlete, right? If you're right on that threshold, it is fun to click that button, right? And you get to see your score up there above all the scaled scores.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's some athletes that just like to test themselves. Oh, I proved to myself that I could do that. That's my win for the day. I don't really care about the time, right? Or I don't really care about how many reps I did. I did that. And that, for them is maybe fine. Yeah. But for the general kind of population, you want to make sure that you're really trying to push for that intended stimulus.
Yeah. But I think it's important, even if you scale workouts, you should still come away with the same thing,
Yeah.
Maybe there was one portion, if there's like a triplet, maybe one of the things you did RX or one of the things you pushed yourself to do more than you thought you were able to do, that should be a win as well. Sometimes I wish there was a button that could acknowledge that.
Like partial RX?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many different ways to scale, and scaling is obviously important. I think, trying to hit that intended stimulus as often as you can, I think is the best way to get results.
It's a more important thing.
Yeah, and so because that stimulus is all around, right, trying to maximize power output for that workout. And so if you are going to do the RX weight, but you're going to move at half the speed, right, it's probably not the right call from a getting the most fitness out of that workout as possible, right?
Yeah.
And so there is sort of sometimes a misconception like, oh, I have to do the higher skill thing or the higher weight because that's going to make me stronger, going to get me more fit. It's not always the case. I think you and I know from programming workouts and from doing this for a while that lighter doesn't mean easier. In fact, it usually means harder. No. Or if there's rest in a workout, it always makes it harder, right? And so scaling is obviously like super important. We do, or whether that means modifying movements, pulling weight down, it's definitely crucial.
That's why most of the people you talk to, you say, oh, I like the long, grindy workouts. Yeah, everybody likes the long, grindy ones. Nobody wants to work out for 3 minutes, where you never have any chance to breathe.
Yeah, I know I don't want to work out for 3 minutes because it always hurts, right? The sprinty workouts always hurt.
They hurt the worst, yeah.
You do kind of, and there's a difference, right? I would say... we just did Gallant. That was a long, grindy workout, and it was really hard. And when you were done with it, it felt like you did a lot of work because you did. Yeah. And some of those hero workouts are like that. But But that doesn't mean that every workout has to be that, right? We talked about, hitting all the general fitness things. Well, that's hitting all the different energy pathways. That's making sure that, yes, you're good at long workouts, but you also can sprint. But you can also do things in the middle at kind of a faster pace, in that middle kind of pace, in that middle time domain. So just trying to make sure all those boxes are checked, making sure we're hitting all of those things, is kind of how we like to do it.
Yeah. I love to sprinkle in some sub 5 minute workouts from time to time. I think that's really...
And they hurt.
Yeah.
They hurt because there's no place to hide, and the quicker you get it done, the sooner that the hurt goes away. And so you're incentivized to just push on some of those, and that's, you need to do that from time to time. Sometimes in life you have to sprint.
Yeah.
And it's not going to feel great. Sometimes in life you have to run for a really long time or do something physical for a really long time. So trying to build programming that prepares for both is always the goal.
Absolutely. So let's go through a few rapid fire kind of questions. All right. What's your favorite benchmark workout?
Probably Fight Gone Bad.
Okay.
It, I think, was one of the first benchmark workouts that I could RX because the barbell is very light. It has movements that I like, rowing, I like box jumps. Wall balls have never really bothered me. I was a setter when I played volleyball, so I was always setting medicine balls against the wall. So that one's fun too. And I like workouts too where it kind of feels like you're moving from one place to the next, and so there's like a natural rhythm to it. You're not hung up on any one movement for a super long time, right? You get to just move on. A little bit of rest in there. It's kind of interval based, so that's probably my favorite.
That one hits hard too.
It does, yeah.
It really hard.
Yeah, if you push that one hard, especially ending on the rower is always just mean because sprinting on the rower to finish and get as many calories as you can hurts.
Yeah. There's nothing like getting in the second round of box jumps on Fight Gone Bad and thinking to yourself, man, I'm in real trouble.
Yeah, it's definitely scary.
Yeah. I will say that I think my favorite is Helen, probably because I think it's the first one that I ever RX'd. Had just gotten pull-ups, and so I got to where I don't know that I could do 12 in a row, but I could do 12, maybe like 2 sets of 6 or something like that. And so I remember coming in on my own on a Saturday when I was at the base and doing Helen by myself. And
it's running pull-ups and swings?
And kettlebell swings, yeah. So it's a 400-meter run and 21 swings and then 12 pull-ups, 3 rounds.
Okay.
So
that's a good one.
I know it took me like 14 minutes or something like that, which is not a great time, but still, I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah,
so. I remember telling a guy at the time, he was like, how long did you do it? And I said 14 something, and he goes, just like,
well, at least you felt good about it.
I
that's
felt
what
good
matters.
About it, So, what's your least favorite movement to program?
I would say maybe handstand walks. I have a harder time programming movements that I cannot do because then I think about coaching them, and I still mentally sometimes get hung up on coaching a movement that I can't do. So like a ring muscle up, a handstand walk, things that there's always people in class that can demo, but there's just a little mental thing that still is harder for me to think about when I program those. It's like, okay, I got to really think about how I'm going to coach this.
Yeah, I would say because I am currently in year 16 of a 20-year plan to get double unders, and so I would say, but I force myself to do to program double unders.
Yeah,
because it's a thing I hate, but
fair.
I love them now, but so barbell or gymnastics?
This is tough. If you asked me this a year ago, I probably would have said gymnastics, but I've been having a lot of more fun with the barbell lately. Gymnastics are still fun, but barbell has kind of caught up. And so I did a little bit of the last cycle of barbell club. I'm doing barbell club again and having a lot of fun, like kind of refining the Olympic lifts has been a lot of fun.
And your numbers have gone way up too.
Yeah. I think over the past year I've made a lot of strength gains there too. So that obviously makes the barbell more fun too when you can put more weight on it.
We can lift more than the girls.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know that feeling, but so We already talked about this a little bit, long workout or sprint.
I think I still enjoy a long workout. I just think it suits me better. I've always been okay at sort of pacing it. But I do think I can settle into that middle distance too. But no, sprints, anytime I know a workout is going to take 5 minutes or less, I'm nervous for it. I'm thinking about it.
I don't know. You head-to-head on burpee box jump overs with Ryan, I think is a real good
Oh, I think that sounds like it would hurt, and that he would probably beat me on it. But
Ryan would probably beat anybody on burpee box jump overs.
Yeah, he is good at the movement.
Yeah. One piece of advice for every Bomber member.
I think thinking about just the general fitness and how you're feeling day to day is important, right? And kind of doing that kind of self-evaluation, right? You don't need to come in to the gym every single day and go 110% every day. It's just not sustainable. And so thinking about, okay, how long is this workout supposed to take? Okay, maybe I back off a little bit today, and just doing that kind of self-evaluation and just staying positive with yourself.
Yeah.
Not quite thinking always about, oh man, I haven't PR'd a lift in a while, or I haven't run that fast in a long time, but also, okay, what did I used to be bad at, and am I better at it now?
Mm-hmm.
I think is another thing. And this is multiple pieces of advice, I guess, but what I like to do or have been doing lately is like looking at a workout and thinking, okay, what's the movement in this workout that I need the most work on? And that is the one that I'm going to attack. So I am not super good at cycling the barbell, and so I'll think, if there's barbell in a workout, okay, this is the movement that I'm really going to focus on. Maybe there's burpees in it. I'm good at burpees, but I don't need to send it on the burpees. I need to get better at doing the other thing faster. And just kind of being honest with yourself about what your weaknesses are and trying to attack those is important.
I always tell people, I think, allow yourself to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You never know what you might be able to do, but you'll never know if you don't try it.
Sure.
Okay? And so if a coach comes up and tells you to try something different, then just do it. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, just do it. Okay? Right. And you never know.
It's fun. It's really fun to chase numbers and stuff, and it's easy to get discouraged when you're not hitting what you want to do. But then also just, staying positive and reminding yourself that what you're doing when you come in here is not normal, right? You're doing things that are awesome every day. You're pushing yourself every day, and that's already a win. And trying to take that for the win that it is, and then just having a good time when you're working out here is always good.
So in closing, if every Bombers member trusted the programming for the next 3 months, what changes do you think they'd see, not just in the gym, but in everyday life? Clearly they'd go to the CrossFit games. That's a given.
Yeah, obviously. I think just, like I said, I think if we're programming around being like broad, right? We're not hyper-focusing on anything, and so encouraging people, attack your weaknesses and then think to yourself, can I get better at those? The things I'm really bad at, can I get better at these over the next 3 months? Or like, especially if it's running, right? We're going to be running a lot. If you hate running, challenge yourself to, as long as your body is allowing you to, if you're not hurt, do all the running and the workouts.
Yeah.
And then the other movements be damned sometimes, right? If you're going to push yourself to do something, get out of your comfort zone, and see if that makes you feel better, not just here, but doing housework, doing yard work, things like that.
Yeah. Hey, Trent, I think that's great advice, man. So I look forward to seeing what comes in the next quarter.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And that includes the 10K, right?
Yeah, a possible September 10K would be fun when it cools off a little bit, I think. Maybe we could get more than 3 people to... No, I think we got a lot of runners here, a lot of really good runners that I think...
Yeah, actually around here you probably would get a lot of people.
Yeah, we get like Will and Josh to do their 10 miles before it to make it more even for everybody else.
Exactly.
Something like that would be fun.
All right. So, hey, thanks for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
If you got something of value from this episode, share it with your crew. Do you want to train with us? Then head over to bomberscrossfit.com and see what we're building. Stronger every day, better every rep. We'll see you in the gym.